In how many ways can we make change for exactly $1 using standard US coins? So let's say we can use pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and half dollars. Now, of course, there are many ways to do this. So one of them we represent here. So if you have a half dollar, a quarter, a dime, 2 nickels, and 5 pennies, this is one way that you can get your $1. And of course, there are many, many, many ways, but we do not want to be listing all the possibilities by hand. Who knows how big this number can be? We want some systematic way of being able to count this, right? Okay. So before we go for any formulas or things like that, let's first use some pictures. So for each coin type, we have several choices. And so the idea here is that each row is sort of indicating the different coins that we have. And so the first row corresponds to how many pennies we are going to choose. This blank square corresponds to not choosing anything. So the idea is that you need to choose one of these on the top row. So you're choosing no pennies, or 1 penny, or 2 pennies, or 3 pennies, or so on. Then you make a choice of how many nickels you want. You make a choice of how many dimes you want, and so on. So each row represents all possible choices for one coin denomination. And so this is our first step, just writing out all the possibilities. Now the idea is we can write our problem sort of like with an algebra of pictures in the following way. Now, this choice of either no penny or 1 penny or 2 pennies or so on, we can sort of represent this or by a plus. And the choice that we're doing one of these and one of these and one of these and one of these is like a multiplication. And so in that case, if you think of this as some huge expression with all the possibilities for pennies, all the possibilities for nickels, all the possibilities for dimes, and so on, and you were to multiply them, you would get all possible combinations that you can do with all of these different coins. And so the idea is that each row represents the sum of possible coin selections for that denomination, and multiplying these sums corresponds to selecting one from each. Now, of course, dealing with all these pictures can become a bit cumbersome, so let's replace the pictures with a single variable. So the idea here is, so pennies will represent it by the variable x, the idea being that it's like an x to the power of 1. A nickel is going to be an x to the power of 5, a dime x to the power of 10, and so on. And when you don't choose something, it's the same as getting a 0, so it's an x to the power of 0, which is just like a 1. And so when we write things like this, selecting, for example, 3 nickels is the same as multiplying 3 of these, because when you multiply these variables, they sum the exponents. And so 3 nickels gives you one way of getting 15 cents. And here, for example, choosing nothing times 3 nickels times 1 dime times, 1 quarter and 1 half dollar is going to give you one way of doing a dollar, x to the 100, right? Okay, so with that, we can essentially transform our problem into a power series. So the idea here is that each row again is going to tell us how many of each coin do we choose. So this huge term here is sort of representing how many pennies we can have. So of course the pennies are all of value 1. So these are all the possibilities when you have 0 pennies, when you have 1 penny, 2, 3. Now when you have the nickels, when you have 1 nickel, you always have already 5 cents, 2 nickels is 10, and so on. And now when you multiply all these infinite series together, the terms that you get, so you're going to get some power series, And the coefficients of these power series are going to give you all the ways in which you can collect from each one of these that add up to whatever that number is, right? And so the idea here is that if we want to find how many ways we can make a dollar, we just need to multiply all of these out and then look at what is the coefficient in x to the 100. And so if we do that, we're able to find how many ways we can get a dollar.